SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps, SFJ4x4, and I am back in Grandma's Couch Studio, and I am pleasantly joined once again by the mad scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Italian stallion, the producer,
Hello.
Jeff Shiramonte. And Jeff Chimichanga.
Yeah, feeling a little roasted this morning.
Well, and that is folks who are tuning in right now. We have prioritized, despite the fact that certainly Jeff and I and the Savage worked the entirety of the weekend at Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival.
We say worked, but that's kind of loose interpretation of how that went.
I mean, I don't know. I went to bed every night with my gas tank empty, and I woke up, butt crack of dawn, and got prepped and ready for the day.
Well,
if you're having fun, if you love what you do, I
was going to say, I think I averaged 3 hours a night of sleep.
That's what I'm saying. But when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. But I mean, that's what we were doing, right? Mm-hmm. But we made it a priority to come back and share with all of you, our followers, listeners, our friends of Facebook and YouTube, the weekend adventures. And the mad scientist is only loosely...
I'm alive.
You're on the recovery.
Yeah.
And we did miss you. And I am thankful that you did choose to join us this morning in studio in person, though I hope he doesn't get us sick.
Right? That's why he's on his own couch in quarantine.
Right. But he is adorning his... his high-vis shirt. Now, if you're watching us at a later date, you would know that we all wore these PPE, the high-vis kindness shirts. And in fact, we actually had a special show made-to-order shirt sale going on for that particular shirt. And so that was what we rocked for the weekend, which we may unpack for you in this episode, because ultimately a lot of this episode is going to be addressing some of the fun that we had over the weekend, sharing those stories with Doc Brown, and talking specifically about the massive impact that you, our friends, family, and Jeep community had on us at the event. Now, because we're going to be talking about our weekend, and for the most part, our weekend was at the event, and Scott was sick, and so basically just relaxed on keeping things minimally. We will be having a very special final moments of the program, so stay tuned after the outro credits, where we'll be talking a little bit about Father's Day. So, Jeffrey, you're a little red.
I am a little red. And, it was a really good time. I'm glad that I'm sunburnt, considering that prior to leaving, it looked like we were going to be in a washout for the whole weekend. So I guess that means that we got lucky and the weather was really good. And I'm paying the price for that.
You are a birthday boy today.
Yeah, I am. I wasn't going to bring it up, but apparently Davey made sure to put that in the comments this morning.
You know what? It would have hit me eventually.
I know.
It would have hit me eventually, because honestly, I thought I missed it last week. So happy birthday to our Italian stallion.
We've had like 4 false starts for Neil on the birthday of Jeff.
I did. I got real panicky last week.
He's been panicking for like 2
I didn't
weeks.
even know about that.
No, I did, because I kept having false
I kept
alarms.
getting messages. I think it's Jeff's birthday. And then when I was like, oh, it's not.
I am so bad with birthdays. Like, of all the things that I am, the things that I am pretty darn good at in the kind of the human capacity, I just can't pin down birthdays.
You know who's the best at birthdays? Davey.
He is
I came in
amazing at birthdays.
this morning. I'm back here setting up, trying to get the studio ready, and I go out to my desk, and there is a energy drink and a bag of Cheez-Its
My God, he's
sitting
so
on my
awesome.
desk. I was like, Davey, was this from you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, thank you.
He is so awesome. I mean, and it's just those little tokens of appreciation to know that that you remember or that he remembered. That's so cool.
Yeah, he's really good about that kind of stuff. In the comments this morning, we've got Nate saying good morning, Jaga Jeeper saying good morning, Mudhorn Gladiator saying good morning, Amy saying good morning, Bill McWilliams saying good morning, Josh Brucker, good morning, guys. Davey obviously was calling out the birthday. And then Billy Joe saying good morning on the way back, home from Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival. Nate saying muddy fun at Bantam.
Mm-hmm.
Keith said good morning, guys. Jaga Jeeper saying happy birthday, thank you. And then Kristen, my wife, is saying that you guys all beat her to it because she was going to come in and try to do that.
Sure.
And then Billy Joe saying happy birthday. Joe Barella saying my shining personality kept the rain at bay.
Joe's
It did,
shining
Joe.
personality, yes.
Absolutely, Joe. There's actually really fun footage from us recording live at Bantam for a podcast episode that'll air in the future. And if it makes the cut, I don't know what audio was being recorded at that moment,
Sure.
but I absolutely caught something out of the side of my eye and turned back, and Joe Barilla is just wildly dancing behind us.
Wildly
It was
dancing in frame.
hilarious. He was
was
perfectly centered on the camera. He knew what he was doing. And then Josh Brucker saying happy birthday as well. So thank you, Josh.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you for wishing Jeffrey a happy birthday, and happy birthday on your perpetual 23rd birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so thankful for what you bring to the table, and we're able to celebrate here together. You know what didn't happen
What's
in
that?
the background of our audio recordings for our podcast?
What's that?
Engines revving incessantly.
Oh, you're right. That did. But you know what did happen?
What's that?
Every single time we passed them, our engines were revving.
So here's our shout out to Jeepcast.
Gary and Gary,
And
good guys.
it was nice seeing them and telling lies about our Jeeps and adventures.
Oh yeah,
And-
they stopped by the booth on Friday, honestly, and then it was like after that moment, every time we drove somewhere, we crossed paths with them.
Oh my gosh.
Out of thousands of Jeeps, they are the ones that we just kept crossing paths with.
It was the
weekend.
Jeepcast guys and the SFJ guys were just, I mean, our worlds were revolving around each other. It was pretty funny in that regard. So, so if you're one of the listeners who follows, both podcasts, let them know we're saying, congratulations on a Wheeling Across America trip. Well done, and safe travels as they return home after 2 months on the road.
Yeah.
And thanks for stopping by and making Bantam as a whole all that more special, right? When we're able to take a couple sizable media experiences and bring that out to the Jeep community, that just benefits everybody. So congratulations to those guys. Thanks for making Bantam special for everybody, and thanks for stopping by and having fun with us over the weekend as well. Speaking of that, obviously muddy fun. It was a peculiar weekend with a odd amount of rain. And I think that I say that because I would not say that it was a rainy weekend. In fact, the whole sunburn nature.
Yeah,
that
it
you would
wasn't
say.
a washout like it was expected. Saturday, we did have rain on and off throughout the morning, but it wasn't a torrential downpour.
Yeah, I felt like we had one big hit, right? So
That lasted a couple minutes.
right, and so when we came in to set up on Thursday, it was Hades hot, as the sun was out, and thanks to the Daddy Jeep guys, so Rob and company for all swinging past our booth as we set up. It's oftentimes that is our day of powwow because Rob is out there curating the trails and he's working with volunteers, and so he swung by and he said, they had been working diligently to make sure that the trails were accessible and that everybody could have a good time this weekend. He had mentioned that the prior Monday they had some torrential downpours and the previous weekend was very wet, but that we had several dry days. And it's been my experience at that property, when you have several dry days, you're typically pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the problem was it has been such a soggy, wet, and cool spring that the ground is just a sponge.
Yeah.
And so when we had that peculiar torrential downpour, for just a couple minutes on Saturday.
Well, that and it had
that
rained
did-
overnight.
It did, just to put up a little bit. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It did.
Yep.
But it almost like brought up the water table sufficiently to just make a soupy, muddy mess, unlike anything I have seen before, as far as with the type of rain that we've had. That was so bad that the staging area,
This was great.
turned into a complete hogwash, pig pen mud field, that it is completely decimated, and they actually were having to do recoveries
In the staging lane.
in the staging lanes.
It gets better. They had to switch to mud tires for many of the trails throughout the weekend.
Actually, having to, air quotes, disqualify, and that's a tough word, but
Yeah,
if you
didn't
had
have-
all terrains, you were unable to run the trails.
Yeah, many of them at least.
Right.
And
a number of them.
Yeah. So the staging lanes were so bad that Patty Jo got her golf cart stuck over there and had to be recovered.
But
But there's a caveat.
it happened while Rob Morgan was doing a special shoot with us.
Yes, he was sitting in our booth recording with us, and his phone is just blowing up like crazy. And he's like, okay, guys, my phone is blowing up. I don't know. It was like right as we're wrapping up, he's like, I gotta go find out what's going on. And
Patty Jo had called him
visibly
several times.
frustrated. His anxiety levels, you could tell, were elevating the more it was ringing. Like he knew something was going on, but he never told us what or why or who was calling. He just leaves. It wasn't until later we found out that Patty Jo was stuck and trying to reach him because she needed help getting unstuck.
Recovering her golf cart.
And then there was some big massive plot to push her down in the mud as they were recovering.
So what I hear is Patty Jo really needs a side-by-side with four-wheel drive and a winch.
Oh, there's
Call to action.
call to action to the Bantam group. That is what she needs to have, because if you are following on our social pages, you'll know that in the most amicable way possible, she is always tolerant of the classic Simpson shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
And so if she gets a side-by-side four-wheel drive and winch,
Then we get a
then we
side-by-side.
benefit
That's
for the
right.
utilization.
Yeah.
of that device.
You know, I think from the whole weekend, part of my favorite part was taking Greg, who very rarely
Our lead
goes to
performance
our shows.
mechanic, for those of you who are always listening, you don't hear about him as often
He very rarely goes out to the shows.
anymore. He was vital
Anymore.
in the very beginning.
Anymore. He prefers to stay in the shop and just and do his performance builds. That's where he feels happiest.
Right.
So we get him at the show. We encourage him. He's doing great, talking with people, having a good time. And then Davey and I, first of all, Patty Jo was obviously aware that we were planning to steal her golf cart and did a great job avoiding our booth all day Friday, all day Saturday mostly. It was like late afternoon. Davey and I start walking through Bantam trying to find her. We made it all the way to the opposite corner, so where the mud pit is. We're all the way down there. We see some volunteers, and we're like, hey, have you guys seen Patty Jo anywhere? And they're like, oh, it's the Simpson guys. So they call Patty Jo. Patty Jo's like, I'm by their booth right now.
Right. She was already there.
So they told her, okay, they're coming back up to the booth. We got up to the booth. Patty Jo's not there. Nowhere to be seen. And I asked the guys, and Neil hadn't seen him. Greg hadn't seen her. And then David was there, our driver and temp or part-time employee. He was there. And he was like, oh, there was a golf cart sitting right in front of me. It said Patty Jo on it. It just left right before you guys walked back.
You got faked out.
Oh, we got faked out. But anyways, no, she came right back. And, we were like, she said, what do you guys need? And we're like, well, your golf cart, obviously. We want to steal that. And she's like, oh, what? Do we have a script? What are we doing? What?
She was ready to go.
We're like, we were just going to steal it this time. We weren't trying to do anything crazy. She's like, okay, go ahead. You got at least a half hour. All right. So Davey and I are loading up on the golf cart, getting ready to go. And I just see Greg just kind of looking over. And
Well, Greg looks at me, right? So this golf cart thing has become a little bit of Jeff's piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow enough on our socials, there's actually a number of selfie stops along the Bantam, social pages. And it started a couple of years ago where there was authentically a stolen golf cart. At this point in time, it's just for a story. The stolen part is a story because ultimately it's just given to us at this regard.
The first year that Davey and I went, Davey was a little shy on media stuff, and he was still like getting used to being able to just walk right up and do things. And Neil and I are like, you got a ladder, just go. Like, nobody's going to question you if you're walking around with your camera.
Right. Doing it for kind of official purposes of sorts.
So we literally hijacked a golf cart and just took it and just started driving around the property.
Well, because we were actually filming.
And we were legit, we put out a very nice film for Bantam. We tagged them in it. And they loved it so much that now we kind of get away with it more.
In the process. Sure.
More allowed to do it versus just us hijacking
This is a process that has largely started. And again, to re-articulate, like, realistically, Greg was on the road with me for many years. And Scott was, equally on the road. And that's what we did to kind of get out where the Jeepers. I always said we had to get out where the Jeepers are, right? Mm-hmm. And as you two have advanced in your career, the workload and the builds and the demands of that are offset by a routine schedule and kind of a comfort zone of being like, hey, I know that I have this high pressure within our brick and mortar space. It's actually more advantageous if I don't have to kind of transition my life to go out on these shows. So we've kind of shifted how we do events, and we've been able to do that with Jeffrey's experience, and then with Savage weighing in, and a couple part-time people helping in the process, and some other good friends of the business.
Absolutely.
And so we've been able to do this. Well, Greg hasn't been out. So Greg's standing next to me, and he's having a pretty good time. It's pretty decent, and he goes, well, what are they doing? I was like, oh, this is their shtick. This is their thing at this point in time. They're going to go, take the golf cart and film some things and pose on the selfie spot with the golf cart where the Jeeps are supposed to be. And they're going to ride around and, wave like, they just won the local pageant. And he's like, really? And then he just disappears, just beelines.
And I just see him walking right up. And he's like, what you guys doing? I'm like, you want to hop on, Greg? Hop on back. And he just jumped right on back like a kid in a candy store. He was happy to go. And I don't think Greg fully understands that I have no limits when it comes to golf carts.
Oh God. Okay. Let's not go exactly down the rabbit hole. We're still working on her getting a side-by-side for next year.
Right. But so Patty Jo literally was telling us as we're taking it that she got stuck already. She's telling us that story and how muddy she got it, and basically dared us to bring it back muddier. And I was like, challenge accepted. So we ended up going around. We did our normal thing up and down some of the vendor aisles, trying to get some good footage there. We ended up going up by the playground, got the photo shoot. Definitely had one wheel suspended in the air. If you look at the picture, you'll see that. Then we go
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. It may be AI. I don't know. There's definitely AI footage that's not real of me crossing a river with an electric golf cart. And we are probably Insta famous because there was two girls from the campground filming this, laughing hysterically, thinking there's no way these three idiots are going to take this golf cart through that river.
Oh God. So anyways, the golf cart was a good experience. We're going to move on. So
it was, but the point of that was that Greg was having a blast. He was laughing the whole time. We did not actually have any issues. We didn't damage the golf cart. We were not trying to roll the golf cart, do anything like that. It was actually appropriate and just having a good time.
So equally having a good time. It was amazing meeting so many of our listeners and Jeep family in the process. And as the title of this particular episode and program may indicate, realistically, us attending these shows at this point is really about you. And what is so cool is the varied impact that we have with so much of the Jeep community. And it was awesome to share in stories, but also in your personal lives and what's important to you. And so that is how I see as the many gifts that we received from so many of our, faithful and supporting and strong-willed, friends and family of the Jeep community. And so we've gone through, and we want to take a moment and recognize a lot of those things, because that is what this is all about. Our ability to get out there and be face-to-face. There was a time where, as I put on my own personal page, where as a business, both as an individual and then as a business, it was a sole proprietor business, and then as a sharing in that responsibility with Scott and Greg, where we were way out in the field towards the obstacle course, towards the playground,
Next to the sign guy.
next to the used sign and stoplight guy who was not there
Now,
this year anymore. And we were hot and sweaty and sleeping in borrowed campers and on the floor of trailers.
that
and
was an upgrade, though.
that was an upgrade from the first couple of years,
Yeah.
right? But now it is our opportunity to share in this kind of great fellowship and communal experience with people. And we had just the best time. And so there was gifts from every stage and manner that you could possibly imagine. And of course, as you all made the kind of the virility of the meat exchange so fun, and we had so many people opt into that, and kind of claim a shirt right out of the gates. We actually had to shut it down.
I was gonna say, we were trying to talk it through this morning, how much weight and meat we had, because Scott asked, and I was like, we were easily 20 pounds, and we started adding up. I think we're closer to 30 pounds.
Yeah, we are somewhere between 20 and 30 pounds. And so thank you. And we had from amazing heat and serve brisket that was already, ready to rock and roll, to homemade
good
pulled
brisket,
pork.
too.
Yeah, we had a homemade pulled pork. We had local craft meats. And so like local butchers to individuals, own pigs and cows and venison.
Yeah.
To kind of specialty hot dogs and breakfast sausage, which were David, our driver, and again newest, who I've been calling Big D. He was cooking for us on Saturday, and had a whole plate of dogs. And so if you came by at the right time, you were getting some food.
He was hilarious, because they started setting up the griddle, and he's like, or the Blackstone, and he's like, oh, well, I'll go cook. I'm like, well, they set it up under the International trailer that's hooked to the International, so under the wedge, and I'm like, that's a tight space. Are you good? You want to cook there? Or do you want us to move it? And he's like, no, this will be great. He was under there having a blast just cooking. He loved cooking.
I actually have a picture of him under there cooking. So
I honestly didn't think he was gonna enjoy that much, and I was trying to make it easier. I was like, we could put it on the back of the Cherokee trailer with the tailgate down. He's like, nope, that's great.
Yeah, and he put it under there because obviously we were trying to keep the griddle out of the rain.
Yeah, because that was where the light rains were coming and going that morning still.
And we wanted to get that food going for everybody. And we got a bunch of different homemade jerkies and meat sticks, which
Davey absolutely hogged.
and one of our great customers, Josh, who the owner of Johnny Five, apparently decimated some of the jerky in the process.
I really believe Davey's just blaming Josh.
Well, that's what I say. Josh can't defend himself, so we don't actually know.
I think Davey just ate them all.
I mean, it was like a pound of jerky sticks.
They were
that
good,
gone.
too.
I got one. We came home Friday night.
I had two.
I was fired up in this specific situation because it was like I was banging, and I knew there was 2 or 3 left. So I ate one, and I went back in, and I was like, "Did you take the last one?" When it came in, there was a bunch, and he's like,
At one point,
"I took the last 2."
At one point, we were walking around somewhere, and he just pulls it out and just starts grabbing one. I think we were at the Invasion. I'm like, "What? What are you doing?
Do you have meat in your pocket?" Come on now. Yeah. So there was this. Like I said, it was so cool, and I hope that people enjoyed. So we actually made it such. Obviously, we were wearing the high vis with the kindness logo, but we gave you the high vis with the I Speak Jeep podcast graphic or imagery on there. So hopefully you rock those proudly when you're out wheeling, and kind of as a keepsake or memory of how that particular day went. And I am already noodling on a kind of a goofy exchange and thematic experience for next year. As many of you may or may not know, we were actually the exact corner booth. So as you entered the grounds, you got to see by immediately on your left hand side, we had all stretched out on the trailer, and then up parked on one of the display rocks, we had the Brilla's really sick 4xe that we have lifted with an RK suspension, and people are always curious about lifting and wheeling 4xe, so we had it all twisted up and on display. And then we had Johnny 5, and then we had hashtag Not a Restoration, also known as Swamp Donkey.
Yeah, so you walk in and there's just 3 just wicked builds of vehicles right there, right in your face.
And of course, we have to take a moment and share with folks that one of the first things you saw was the in living color, the protective film on the front of Johnny 5 and on the 4xe,
yes,
from Windshield Defense by Racing Optics. And it was great because people could see that and kind of see how it lays out, and we could show you the different little corner trim where you pull for the.
We're able to talk about the install process and the tips and tricks we learned from doing the first one to doing the second one, and how we made it even better of an install just by changing a couple things.
Well, not only that, we've been paying attention to other windshields since we've got this product.
Oh,
and
it's
how
unbelievable.
Many little marks and chips that we would have said those aren't there.
Absolutely. And everybody, and now we're actually so cognizant of it. We actually can, when we clean it, you circle it and you're like, wow, I can't believe how damaged my windshield is.
Yeah.
And so, this product by Windshield Defense is a triple layered protective film that acts like a screen protector for your phone. And, once it's installed properly, it kind of visibly disappears. And those nicks and scratches and all that kind of stuff that, that we don't know are there until you've just kind of obsessively cleaned your glass. This is going to, at least for a year, 2 years, almost 3 years, depending on how you use the Jeep, is going to protect your glass. And that's a hefty investment, because those of you who have adaptive cruise with the latest and greatest, Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator platforms, that glass can be upwards of $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 to replace and program. And yeah, you might have a glass rider on your insurance, but realistically speaking, I'm seeing more and more insurance companies push back on the glass for specifically your flat plane Jeeps, or flat plane vehicles. So the Mercedes Defender, Land Rovers. What did I botch? Oh no, the G-Wagon.
Let's say Mercedes G-Wagon.
G-Wagon, Land Rover Defender. Yeah, those crappy import vehicles. I said it. I don't care about them, but I do care about Jeeps and Broncos, and I only care about Broncos because Jeeps are better than them. So I know those two are covered.
I'm going to go back to the comments.
You can get your Windshield Defense product on their website at SFJ20, and make sure you put that code in so you get 20% off. That's not a show
free
special.
Shipping.
Yeah, and free shipping. That's not a show special. That is factually, so you can get a product just like we had on display.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a really simple install, pretty easy to do.
So what are the comments you wanted to go to?
Yeah, I want to jump into the comments because there's a lot that came in. So a couple more birthday wishes. Thank you guys. We've got Josh saying he couldn't even cross the staging area. Daddy Jeep said, or a Jeep. I'm assuming on a Jeep. You couldn't.
No, for Patty Joe. You didn't keep up with him. You're coming back in.
Oh.
We said she needed a side by side, and when he said that, he said, or she needs a Jeep.
Got it.
To drive around in.
Fred and Roy are saying good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Nate saying he actually helped recover Patty Joe's golf cart at a photo spot on Saturday. It must not have been the same photo spot we were at, or she did a better job of getting it up there. Then Billy Joe was saying that she actually typed Bill's good morning before her own, since he's driving.
Well, and so let's take a moment to unpack this, because we actually had a number of people, and Nathan, per the usual, was first once again. And there was actually people who asked him, how are you always first?
That's funny.
And he was very humble about it, and he was like, I'm just in the back of my shop. I'm ready to rock and roll, and I input it. And because obviously, those listening in, everybody's always going for the, kind of the hierarchy of who's getting in first. And Nathan is going to be traveling with family to Alaska in the next couple of weeks. So if you thought that this is your moment to strike while the fire is hot, you might be able to get first.
Although he's claiming he's going to try to make sure he still gets first on those.
But he's going to be at a massive disadvantage. So,
right.
folks, I mean, you can beat a guy while he's down, is what I hear.
Yeah. It was really funny because he was at the booth talking to you for a while. And honestly, I didn't realize who you were talking to because I was on the other side.
Sure.
And Dave's like, hey, that's Nate. I was like, oh, hey, let's get him to sit down and do a segment. So I came over and I suggested, you're like, we got a lot going on. And I'm like, but this would be his prime opportunity to be first for the Bantam special episode. And you're like, let's do it. And then Nate just walked off.
Yeah.
He was
were like,
gone.
we obviously didn't communicate to him what our plan was sufficiently.
No.
We were like, it was like this nice surprise thing. And we said something to him, but we don't think that he understood what we were
He
saying.
didn't understand the assignment.
Yeah.
That's right.
We had a good laugh about it. Nate, I'm sorry. We did try to get you, but we didn't
Yeah,
communicate.
somehow that didn't come out.
We-
We knew what we were
we-
saying.
Well, apparently we were talking in code and didn't clarify.
Go figure.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so that's with Billy Joe, right?
Yeah.
Technically, she could have been first, but she actually typed. She was typing for Bill. I think.
Yep. And then we got Joe saying good morning, was cleaning mud this morning.
10 hours of cleaning for 10 minutes of fun.
Yep.
Joe, we talked about you staying out of the mud, just so we're all on the same page.
And we got to see Joe down at the Invasion, too.
Absolutely. He had a nice crew
I
out
was going
there.
to say, they had like this whole big ring of people just hanging out right in the middle of one of the parking lots.
I thought it was perfect for them, and as a kind of a nice piece, we from Wheeling Upright, we actually another kind of gift of Bantam. We actually did a shirt exchange with him and by extension them. So we have a Wheeling Upright shirt in house now that I'll proudly wear in the future.
Nice. We've got Diana saying good morning. So sorry I couldn't deliver the burger. Glad you guys had a great weekend.
Diane, don't worry, we still have your shirt. You'll get it at your earliest convenience.
We got Billy Joe was saying that it was jalapeno, cheddar, and venison sticks, and they're bringing more next year.
Yeah, I will take those personally because
Do not give them to Davey.
because I got one.
Maybe pack a separate pack of like one for Davey.
That's all right. I had great chicken jerky. I've never had chicken jerky to my knowledge. I have turkey jerky, but this was chicken jerky. That was amazing. We also had some other venison and cheese jerky.
And there was
I was crushing
there was
on
a
that.
variety of different.
Variety
Meat
of that
sticks.
kind of meat sticks and stuff.
Yeah. Joe Brillo making the comment of, is that meat in your pocket? And I'll just leave that one for the internet.
Or just kind of go ahead and the internet can use their
Yep.
imagination.
And Janie was saying, thank you all for including me at your booth and for the beautiful award for best themed Jeep. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we've got also that Jeannie was saying, glad you're feeling better, Scott. And Jaga Jeepers saying, good luck. He's hard to beat. Talk about Nate being first. And Nate said he had to run to go get Father's Day dinner. So that's an appropriate reason
That's
to leave.
a valid excuse.
Yep.
That's valid. And just, talking about Jeannie and her situation, and many people are aware that she has not one, but realistically two show vehicles that she has kind of out of her own volition and personal pocket has attempted to put together and bring to as many Jeep events kind of coast to coast as possible to make people happy.
And they have been to Alaska with Cookie Monster.
Right. And, kind of air quotes recently enough. And, she shared with me because Scott, you've go to the car shows, you know how they are. And I pull no punches to say car shows bore me to death. And you know that since we were, younger and we had first met. I can go to basically one a year. And certainly Jeeps are not always the most welcomed vehicle at a car show.
Yeah, at minimum understood vehicle.
Absolutely. And so, Jeannie has shared with me over the course of rebuilding her Jeep that was in an accident, and she bought it back because it has such intrinsic value to her and the community as a whole. And she was sharing to me that she realized she was going to these show and shines. She was going to these different light and sound competitions. She was participating in these things because she found them fun. But she saw people who were, I don't want to use the word ostracized, but not as involved as they could be. But specifically kids who were attending with their families.
Yep.
And she thought, you know what, let's have fun with this. And she has a blue right-hand Jeep. Well, both of them are right-hand drives, which are unique in their own right because she is a retired postal worker. So they're both very unique in that situation. That always gets people excited. And so one of them is blue, which she has kind of gone all in on and theming Cookie Monster.
The funny thing about that is she actually had another Jeep before that of a orange color.
Okay.
And she hated the blue Jeep. She
really?
did not want a blue Jeep.
I didn't know that part of the story.
And that's how she came up with the idea of making it Cookie Monster, because she had to make it more fun. And that's where she fell in love with that Jeep.
Isn't that funny?
She absolutely hated the blue Jeep. And she was telling me this story, and I was like, you're hurting my soul because that's my color.
Because you are such a blue guy.
That's my color. And she's like, well, I love it now. And she told
right.
the whole story. I thought that was really cool.
Well, and then she has the yellow two-door, which she's affectionately themed out as Minion. But one of the most unique pieces about it is how many independent music artists she has that have signed, which is the left door of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Would normally be the driver's side, but in this case is the passenger side. So it's this really very unique vehicle that was a consolation for Cookie Monster as it's been through a 5-6 month restorative rebuild process, and we've put a new frame under it, a new axle under it. We've done a full driveline swap, rewiring of the sound system and lights on it. In that process, there are always challenges and obstacles. Anything in life worth having is worth working for. Mm-hmm. And when through the disassembly process, especially something that was once a dedicated work vehicle and is now a show vehicle, sometimes you actually have even more to do. And unfortunately, that was the case we found with Cookie Monster specifically, and it got hung up in the paint shop. Unfortunately, we can control so many things.
Paint jail.
Paint jail. I love it. It was in paint jail.
Yep.
We can control so many things when it comes to us and what we can do. But when we work with partners in the industry, my gloves are off just a little bit.
But you know what? It's appropriate in the situation like this, because the reason it got hung up is not because of any just generic paint shop not wanting to do it. It's because this paint shop cares about the quality of work that they put out, and they needed more time to make sure that they got a quality paint job done for this customer.
100%. 100%. And that was just, they've kept finding more and they're stripping away. It actually has been painted a couple times in different little, nicks and rust spots and stuff like that. So consolation, I said, please come display Minion in our booth. And there were some, intrinsic challenges because she was registered for events. And anytime that people ask about all the Jeeps in our booth, and realistically, we display very few of our vehicles anymore, maybe one or two at max.
Right.
But realistically, it kind of reminds me of the Reader's Rides from back in the day with the Petersons and the 4-wheel drive magazines and the JP. People like to know about other Jeepers' Jeeps. Yeah, business can get all the latest and greatest and hook it up and do this, that, and the third, but there's something about going, hey, I can relate to this. This is a person like me who had their Jeep worked on, serviced, built. And so, of course, we had 7 Jeeps on display, and all but one of them was a customer, a customer vehicle. And obviously we had our Comanche trailer there, which actually got quite a bit of attention. So, thanks for Jeannie participating in that. Unfortunately, because of that, she wasn't able to participate in one of the events that she would have, kind of handedly been competitive and potentially won as far as her displaying of Minion is concerned. And there is at the show, actually by Giaga Jeepers and his lovely wife, they are making these really cool custom tin signs.
Yeah.
And
really, really pretty impressive work, honestly.
Pretty impressive work. And so we were
To be able to do it on site too was the craziest part to me.
Yes,
this
and
is
so
awesome.
And so thank you to them because they gifted us a nice picture of our booth display transferred onto a tin sign. They also did that for
That'll be going in the
Daddy
studio.
Jeep. And so there's this really cool process where they're able to digitally take a picture, do some very basic graphic editing, and then within minutes have a awesome garage sign. Much like any of our other tin signs that we love as far as decoration is concerned. And so I had the opportunity to kind of offer Jeannie kind of an award based on some of the other events that I've judged in the past and as a custom nature because of what Geauga Jeepers brought to the show and obviously gifted us as well in while we were there.
Yeah.
So very cool. Thank you to both of them for displaying and for giving us that tin sign as well. Like I said, we had the food and the signage and people coming up and just sharing of stories. But you actually, despite the fact that you were not there, received a number of gifts or pledging or promises of gifts. One of them also from Geauga Jeepers, but also Bill McWilliams and Billy Joe by extension, brought you some vintage machinist tools.
Super excited.
Yeah, and so we started. Scott was toiling away on some restoration projects this morning, and as soon as I started to bring up these machinist tools, Scott's like perked right up.
Yeah.
And
you said about gifts, and he just tooling away, working on a Jeep, and then you're like, well, they were actually vintage machine tools, and he just what?
Yeah,
And
it was
starts
like
looking around like what do I get?
It was like Pavlov's dog, you know what I mean? Like I'd rung the bell all of a sudden, and he started to salivate. So, thank you for those who either brought those vintage tools in. We have this really cool like arbor press device, which is definitely this very niche tool. But
That's speaking my language.
I know you're going to love it. You're going to love it once we get the trailers unpacked and everything. And there were some dial indicators, some other handheld stuff, some potential handheld tools in the very near future. But not only did we get tools, physical tools and an arbor press. I mean, it's a good size thing. Billy Joe thought of us so considerately that she brought us some specialty sunscreen and aftercare products from Mary Kay. She feels very invested in the call it the science about the product itself and how it should benefit.
Maybe trying that here in a little bit.
Yeah, and so I think, Jeff, you're going to be trying the aftercare as soon as we get it unpacked as well, because you should have had the sunscreen on. I didn't realize that you were out in the sun as much as you were.
I didn't either until this morning when I was taking a shower going, oh, that burns a little bit.
Yeah, if you would have had it on, it would be perfectly fine, I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree.
But we appreciate the sentiment of both tools and obviously our health, which Jeff Covey's blatantly disregarded.
Oh, it's because he's perpetual 23.
Perpetually
Probably, yeah.
23.
Yeah.
So that was excellent. As always, a big shout out to the Angry Turtle, Jason.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people ask about our housing accommodations, which have always kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. As we mentioned, there was sleeping on the ground in tents and in trailers, truck beds. There were a small stint in the RV, which was nice.
When you're focused on loading till 1 o'clock in the morning, where you're going to sleep is not usually the first thing in your brain.
That was secondary.
So pretty much we slept where we fell.
That's correct. If we loaded, through the night and then we went to the event and it was hot and you're arduously kind of sledging through the sunshine and the high grass. Remember, we
used to have to mow our spot.
Greg had to walk up from the other end. He didn't know exactly where we were and whatnot, and he was walking through some of this high grass. And he was like, I wonder if Neil's up there grumbling about the grass. I said, no, man, I don't have to bring the lawnmower anymore. But a lot of people don't know. I used to actually bring a push mower to events. And I wanted people to not have to schlepp through the grass or get it matted down and be all kind of, cattywampus and look poorly displayed. So I actually would bring a push mower to these events and I would mow our booth. We didn't have to mow our booth this time.
Yep.
Which was good. But as far as the sleeping accommodations, a huge shout out. I would tell people, where we're at. And I said, you know what, we have this great friend, and he started as a customer, and he's absolutely just become an amazing supporter and friend of the business. And he takes care of our sleeping accommodations.
Honestly, I think it was probably the nicest accommodations we've had yet.
It was awesome. It was awesome. We were on an offsite campground, which was just 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
One that I camped at probably pushing 18 years ago at this point, Jeff and I would wake up and just have coffee on this beautiful porch that kind of overlooked. There was a beautiful creek to the side of us, and the tent area just down below.
It was the perfect ambiance in the morning, just to relax and just really enjoy life
and kind of get set for the show. It made you excited, you know. There was sprinkling on the roof. It was a metal roof, and you just had coffee. It was dry as a bone under the porch. And we lost an hour. I mean, it was just not only was my brain was in a blender in preparation of the show. So, I mean, if I said something crazy, it's probably true, but I'm going to use the excuse that I was all topsy-turvy the first couple days.
Yeah, Saturday morning, though, we were absolutely just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I think Davey said something about the clock, and you're like, no, it's not. And you look at the timer. How is it? It blew literally an hour, just disappeared.
Absolutely lost an hour. So, but amazing accommodations. And if you are okay with staying off site, I think it is Rose Point Park or Rose Point Campground. Definitely a big recommendation. Ended up using the laundromat services there on Saturday night to clean our shirts and everything. And it was just a very family friendly, very chill, nice campground. And so thank you for to Jason for allowing that experience to be possible, and Ronnie for allowing us to kind of invade that space and, just have a very cool, easy way for us to decompress. But of course, those guys also bring us ice and buns and condiments. So if you ate any of the buns or use any of the condiments and stuff, that's all provided by those guys. They come and they help set up and they help tear down, and we couldn't do it without them. Likewise, we've established some really good friends with Crown Automotive.
Yes.
And we know how much we use Crown Automotive, and depending on where you encounter the Jeep world, sometimes you're kind of like, wow, those Crown parts. And I always used your line, Scott, in the sense of like, well, we are thankful that we have reproduction parts,
something,
because there's if you're a Hudson guy, if you're a
any of the orphan makes, that's what they call a mark that's no longer made, and we're guilty by association of AMC
Sure.
being an orphan, even though Jeep's still being produced. So there's lots of little parts and pieces that don't exist and maybe weren't the best quality in the first place. So we're looking for something to replace it. And Crown does try to offer that. And they are trying to improve things if they know they have a problem.
And you got to meet Sully and Adrian last year, and you were able to share some of your grievances about some of the parts.
And honestly, some of it's sadly, I put old grumpy people on blast all the time, but there's a lot of discourse amongst other grumpy people that they have problems, but they don't take the time to constructively contact the business and go, hey, it would be better if this existed. Correct. Or, hey, this year is actually a little different. And if they don't know what they don't know, then they can't fix it.
100%.
So.
And Crown is aware of that. And that is why, like us, it is so important to come out and meet Jeepers.
Yep.
Because specifically, these guys are doing a lot of the East Coast or the Northeast shows. And I think they said they were doing 7 or 9 shows total. That's just them.
And they didn't even know about Toledo Jeep Fest.
They didn't even know about Toledo at a corporate level, a communication. They didn't even know about Toledo Jeep. What a blasphemous experience that must be at a corporate level. Now, somebody might be aware, right?
Yeah.
But these two, who are literally in a customer service a related field, who are in like technical, and they are more on the building side of things.
And they are the ones going to the shows in this area.
And they are out and they're listening to that feedback. They're going, well, okay, if it's not working, it is working. How can we help you? How can we be relevant in this market? Mm-hmm. And Crown is responsive. Well, we've developed this, friendship with them. And, they treated us to dinner over the weekend as well.
We did a shirt exchange for dinner.
We did a shirt exchange for dinner with them, but I think we won out because they took us out for steak.
It was great.
Yeah, they were excellent.
But
with
not
us.
only was it great, that it was productive because we got to talk about different products and talk about what's coming down the pipe and things that we could work with them on to make your job easier as you're doing these vintage builds.
Yeah,
And at least they're listening. Like the other big mark that shall not be named is not apparently listening.
I agree. And they were there as well in their massive conglomerate.
Yeah.
But Crown is still an independent at this time, dedicated to reproduction parts.
I do have to say, they got us pretty good because not only did they magically appear at Haas's, I don't know how they got there so fast. They were already seated. We walk in, the waitress comes out and goes, all right, can we start your orders? I know you two are going to get this, this, and that. And they're like, yep. And we're
We're
all
like, what?
Are they regulars?
From Boston?
From Boston, from Boston, Massachusetts. They're regular enough that she knew exactly what their order was.
Craziness.
Yeah. So come to find out, last year, they ate there like twice and they loved it. And she waited on them both times. So then they came into town Wednesday night. And I don't know, it must have been, I don't know if they did Wednesday and Thursday.
To my knowledge, they've ate there literally every day.
Except for, because we went out with them Saturday, except for Friday.
Yeah.
They went somewhere else for dinner, and they were so wholly disappointed. They were like, nope, I know what I like.
They cheated on them.
And they got her again.
Same waitress every time.
Same waitress every time. And she was just like, yep, this is how you want it. The extra gravy, peppers, mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yep, I'll take it. I was like,
their plates came out with so many mushrooms on it. Mounds of mushrooms. And they're like, I guess this is what it mean to be regular here.
yeah, they felt pretty special at the Haas's in Grove City.
Yeah.
So that was funny enough. But a lot of you may have also had the opportunity, as far as friends and whatnot are concerned, to have seen Johnny Five, the Red Gladiator. Now, we were unable to get it to Bantam, despite the fact that was one of our soft goals last year. We were unable, much like Cookie Monster situation. We were in the middle of a specific modification that had gone
Too long.
less than desirably. There was something that we were working on, and it involved another company. And we were unable to get the Jeep to Bantam. So I know a number of people were looking forward to, again, on a regional scale, because we did have it at Toledo and Smoky Mountain. But on a regional scale, they were looking forward to seeing it at Bantam, and it was beautiful. We took it downtown for the invasion. We had the lights going. We had the train horn going. Greg came in on Saturday and had all the lights flashing and strobing for people. Really neat stuff. But the owner was able to join us on Friday, and we went to bed with our faces hurting from smiling and laughing.
The whole time he was hysterical.
And a lot of people actually talk to him, and he is just the most humble dude. And he had like one of the most gnarly rigs at the entire, certainly in the vendor area and arguably at the show in general. And he is just such an incredibly humble dude.
Yes.
And it goes to the point where we were driving his truck. We have to do some type of Walmart run at a show.
Well, before we do the Walmart run, before we do the Walmart run, we're leaving the show to go to the invasion, and it's traffic going to the invasion. There's plenty of people trying to get there. There's this hill off to the side, and Josh is trying to encourage Neil. Neil's driving. He is just going on and on trying to get Neil to just
he's
take it up the hill.
Just riding me.
He literally goes, I haven't even seen this in four-wheel drive yet.
I don't even know if four-wheel drive works in this
He's
thing.
like, I don't think it works.
You won't go up that hill. You won't do it
the whole time.
I mean, it's just beautifully manicured. They've mowed it, 11 times this spring already. It's like a trucker paradise up on the top. There's semis and stuff up there. It's like, I don't even know if four-wheel drive works in this thing. You got the biggest Jeep, and it doesn't even go up a little grassy hill.
So we get out into a free strip of highway where there's nobody in front of us, and he lets it rip a little bit. And he's like, all right, so you showed me that two-wheel drive works. You still haven't shown me four-wheel drive works.
Yeah. just beating me up. Just beating me up the whole time.
It was hilarious.
The whole time. But the Walmart run was the absolute icing on the cake. And I will share that there will be absolute that we can't air now will be on Patreon. There will be snippets and things that we cannot air, or we're going to choose not to air in our recap. That will be on Patreon.
Yes.
But there is a particular reason we are at Walmart, first and foremost.
Yes.
And it does entail
one specific reason.
And it does entail the fact that big boys in heat is not always a great combination. And if you only ever listen to our podcast, I am no skinny mini. Savage could be my bookend, and Big D, our driver, is about as big as both of us combined. Okay, so this is some big boys involved in the business, and needless to say, Savage ends up riding a scooter around the Walmart once again, much like he did in Toledo before.
Yep.
But Josh and Savage end up paired together, and you just kind of like, it was almost something out of a movie. You would just kind of see them like disappear around an end cap,
and then suddenly they were over in another aisle.
Suddenly over here, and Josh is just
it's like watching Scooby-Doo. They're just coming in and out of different doors constantly.
That's exactly what it was like. It was exactly like watching the old Scooby-Doos where they're like across the top of the screen and then across the bottom, and then they went straight up. And
yeah, it was hilarious.
And ultimately, also we had forgotten pillows. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we did.
With our housing accommodation. So we were there picking up pillows. But as we get to the self-checkout, which, depending on how you feel about it, it was at the end of the night and we had to use self-checkout.
And the way the self-checkout was, there was 2 registers off to one side, 2 opposite of that, and behind it was 2 more, kind of perpendicular. So I'm at one of the ones that are back in the back section. Neil's on one side, Davey's on the other side, and another random customer's got a big cart full of stuff checking out. So that kind of lays out the stage of how it is. Josh is like, I don't even know why I'm waiting with you guys. I don't have anything. Josh goes,
I literally just walked around Walmart and hung out here. I didn't even buy anything. He's like, why did I even come in here? Like, he's doing this. So then he walks away, like kind of walks where you would typically see the individual who does oversee the self-checkouts. Right? And he kind of randomly stands there, and it's apparent to us that the Savage is having a hard time scanning his items.
Specifically the pillow.
And the first thing Josh says, and he's kind of standing in this position, which is, again, where the typical Walmart, worker stands, and he goes, sir, it's the little box with the black and white lines. That's what you want to shoot with the thing. And and then he's like, Sir, I see that you got baby powder. Is there a reason you're just getting baby powder in a pillow? And he's doing this.
It's like, did you need any further help, or do you think you can scan this okay now? Let me know. I'll come over and help you.
So then he's like, he does this.
Well,
and
he turns to you next.
Yes. And, is like, sir, I'm going to need to check your tag. It says to me, and I'm like trying to scan stuff. And he's like, do you need any help? Because you look like you might need help,
No, and he goes, if that first card declines, you're going to have to use a different credit card.
That's right. I was like, oh man, this is serendipitous. I am having these challenges, I'm like, I hope I have a card in here that works.
So I'm the first one done checking myself out, and I go walking up to where Josh is. I was like, excuse me, sir, excuse me. I need to see that receipt. So I'm cracking up.
So now he has dogged on 3 of us at this point,
so
right?
I hand him my receipt. He goes, okay, you're good. Thank you. And I walk over, and I'm just standing off to the side.
Takes a couple steps away. At that point in time, this poor couple, who is also scanning this whole cart out, they're done, and they take their receipt. And Josh goes, "Oh, I see you went back for just milk. I'm gonna need to check your receipt." To which the man,
they had a cart full of groceries, cart full.
To which the man then starts to produce his receipt to our customer, to which the woman of the couple
was just, he doesn't even work here.
She's dying. She's like, you don't have to show him your receipt. And the guy just like shrugs his shoulders. He's like, I don't know, why not? So then produces the random receipt, to which Josh keeps up the charade and like gets
Straight
in close. Just serious as can be, straight faced, starts like rummaging through their cart, checking the receipt.
I'm literally leaning on this cooler to hold myself up. I'm laughing so hard.
We're in stitches, right? We're in stitches.
The customers were laughing about it too. They were having a good time, but it was just the funniest thing that he legit just stopped this random couple. And the guy honestly was like, I actually don't know. So I'm going to play it safe and just give you my receipt.
And that's exactly what the guy did, right? And at that point in time, we were done sufficiently cashing out, and we turned. It was as if nothing had ever transpired. Josh turns on his heels and was like, "All right, let's get out of here before we get kicked out." You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, that would be like my third time getting kicked out of a Walmart for official business duties.
Davey just messaged me. What we didn't see, and this explains why they were suddenly popping in and out of aisles so quick that we couldn't figure out. There was a moment where Josh was running and pushing me in the cart to give me a speed boost. That's what the Savage just texted me.
That was why they were so fast, because I was like,
couldn't figure it
the
out.
Scooby-Doo thing. I couldn't believe they were going so fast. Those carts aren't that fast. I see now. I
It
understand.
makes a little more sense.
that Josh and Savage were pushing the turbo button on the controller.
We're walking out, and you said you stated, "Hey, let's get you that W-9 so you get your wages for tonight."
Yes.
I know it was the running thing of, I've been working here for a while now. I haven't
Been
got a
here for
paycheck."
30 seconds. I'd like to collect my paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great time. And you know what, folks? That is what the Jeep life is about. It is not, I mean, all of this we talked about, yeah, there was mud. Yeah, there was four-wheel drive. Yeah, there was recovery. But it was those human experiences, those moments that bring us together as a community, that unites us. The whole world experienced a lot of things over the weekend. And yet, as a whole, and we meet and talk to a lot of people, everything was about the Jeep life. And so whether it was about the invasion or the food people were eating or the trails that they were riding or the fixes they were doing or the builds that the future held for them,
It was
that is what we got to share.
We were able to embody the kindness of our shirts, and that was everybody that came by the booth was kind. It was respectful. Nobody cared about politics, about religion, any of that. It was all about the Jeep life, and just a great time.
And you know what? If your biggest gripes were that you didn't like where you were parked for some capacity of the event, which was everybody has this thing. I'm too far away. I'm too close. I'm too in. I'm too this. You know what I mean? That's always one of the things, because we are a vehicle world, so parking is a thing. Or a little bit of rain and a little bit of mud, or the beating sun and your hurting feet. If those were our biggest gripes out of the weekend, then to me, that's a pretty darn good weekend.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank everybody so vitally for how they, made that weekend as an experience as a whole for everybody involved. Now, with that specifically said, one of the final gifts was specifically from Jeannie. And if you are watching live online, you will have noticed a SFJ 4x4 rock sign that was on the back of the Jeep seat that Scott sits on.
And Scott's playing Vanna White, showing them right now. He's holding one that says Davey the Savage, another one that says Dr. Scott, Mad Scientist. He handed you one that says Neil, Owner, CBO, which I commented on to you. Jeannie was really paying attention to episodes and stuff to be able to go back and find where we made the jokes about Chief Babysitting Officer.
100%. Which is for external affairs. For folks, know that is not for internal. These guys are hard-working, self-motivated individuals. My babysitting services are for other businesses to do their darn job.
But if you've received an email from me directly, you'll know that my job title says CBOIA, and that's
something else. Don't worry about that, folks.
That's for babysitting him. Internal affairs. My sign says Jeff the Italian Stallion. Greg says Greg Super Mechanic. And they're really fun. They're made out of rocks. You have a story about that, I guess.
Well, so this is all... these are all actually a form of a diamond that her and her husband have acquired over the years in their own pursuits out in their adventures, in their Jeep adventures. She didn't have quite enough to do all of the signs, but then she ended up using this kind of thematically red color palette for the other words. But think about the piecework that she did to ensure that she had enough rocks and the layout, and then glue all these in place. And so that type of care and support speaks volumes. And so all of you who thought of us and shared with us over the weekend, and so whether it was you stopped by to say hi and share a story, or whether you had a gift or to bring to the booth, I want you to know, and I hope that we've covered everybody because we wanted to really make this about you. And I don't think that this event would be the same without that experience with the Jeep community. So
No
understand.
way it would have been. This weekend would have been miserable with the humidity if it wasn't for good people that came by the booth.
100%.
I mean, that's what made this event.
And
fun.
so we appreciate everything that our Jeep family does and brings to this Jeep life that we are all living. And whether you're near or far, or whether you're going to see us at Toledo or Smoky Mountain or SEMA or wherever it might be, those bigger events, or even if it's just the small scale events, understand that we appreciate you so significantly. And so I guess this Gifts of Bantam conversation is not necessarily about the tangible items that we've addressed or shared. While that is important to recognize those, it's the intangibles of what you mean to us and this pursuit. So thank you so much.
And the only real complaint, and the one that doesn't get included in the thankfulness, is that Bronco. Apparently, Geauga Jeepers had a Bronco parked next to their booth inside a Jeep event.
Weird. Till next time, Jeep on.
Keep on.
Jeep on.
Now, as I suppose as we kind of continue that reverent tone of appreciation and whatnot, I think it is valuable for us to, to recognize that it was Father's Day.
Yeah.
And that instead of a traditional weekend update that we do post credits of sorts, that I thought it would be valuable for us to take a few moments and just like, our customers and our followers, kind of make this experience so valuable. I think it's interesting to talk about our experiences with our fathers and, how they added to our lives. Now, you did say you wanted to either go first or last. I don't exactly recall.
One of you two go first.
Okay. And Jeffrey, do you have a particular contention?
Sure. I can go first. I don't care.
It's
So,
6 and 1 hand.
we were talking about the idea of what our parents or our dad has specifically done to get us to where we're at in life. And with my dad, he worked multiple jobs at any given time to make sure that we were provided for. We were a low income family growing up, but it never felt like that. Mm-hmm. We always grew up feeling like we had anything we wanted. And I still remember stories, like when I was around 10 years old, my dad owned a Chevy Lumina and he asked me to pull it forward in the driveway. He promptly decided that was not a good idea when I ran it up and over the railroad ties into the yard. So that happened.
There was a lot of stuff we didn't know about Jeff before he was hired.
Yeah. There's
Probably for the best.
probably for the best. But things like that, honestly, the handyman nature of me and that came from my dad, learning how to do the projects ourselves because we
To be
really never could.
resourceful. Right.
Yeah, we really never could afford to pay for that kind of stuff. So working on cars, I remember as a kid working on cars in the driveway, learn how to do brakes, oil changes, a lot of the basics. When I bought my first car, it needed a lot of work. They didn't have the ability to buy me a car, so I had to buy one. I bought one for $300, and we did all the work in the driveway. My dad helped with a lot of that, and also helped with making connections with people to be able to bring in more expertise when needed, things like that. So just overall, being there, being supportive, always encouraging me for what I do, including even now, they'll listen to this program. They'll everything I do with the nonprofit, they get involved with. My dad's always there, being supportive in every way.
I think that's one of the big things specifically strikes me with the nonprofit. And I recognize that it is a nonprofit that is in memoriam of your cousin.
Yeah.
But
on my mom's side of the family.
I was going to say, but the impact that your parents have and their investment in you and your leadership there with that organization, they're always there as, kind of steadfast supporters.
They're always there, and they're always saying they have no idea where I got the ability to go up and talk in front of people from. Because my dad can't talk in front of people like that. He one-on-one, he's a social butterfly, but you put him in front of a large crowd, he's out.
Sure.
And the same with all the handyman stuff. For most of my life, I would turn to my dad, hey, how do you do this? Hey, how do you do this? And now I'm finding I've surpassed him, and I'm actually the one that's, hey, this is how we can do this better for you. This is how we can do that. And I hope one day that's how my children do surpass what I can do, and kind of keep that trend and pattern going in our family.
That's awesome. And I think, can I share mine? Are you,
Yeah,
you're good?
no, you're
Okay.
good.
I didn't want to interrupt you or take anything away.
No.
I think that exactly to echo that sentiment was, one of my father's best gifts to me was that he wanted me to be better than him. Right.
Yeah.
So there's these traditional markers, of some, less than desirable father situations where, it's almost competitive with their sons, right? And it sounds like with your father, that was never the case, with my dad.
No.
It was athletics. We were playing sports, and he wanted me to win, right? But he kept me humble in the process. And I'll always remember, we would pick up basketball against each other, and he would, as he aged, he was still had these great jump J hook shot, and he would beat me every time. And I still remember the time when I first beat him, you know what I mean? And that first foot race, that first basketball game where he didn't let me win. I earned it, you know what I mean? But he wanted me to be better. He wanted me to be in a better position. And I think that certainly while I didn't even recognize my dad for Father's Day yesterday because we were so darn busy.
It was the end of the day. I texted my
very
dad.
end of the day and whatnot. He was just always, kind of, he allowed me to go after these pursuits. And so, I think that's one of the things is so impactful to me. He never made me feel small. He allowed me to chase dreams and to chase things that other people, would have said, hey, don't do that. With that said, my dad was not particularly handy. He was a school teacher, 35 years, but he was a public servant in that situation. And so he knew what it meant to give back to the community. And that was a huge part of his identity, and one that he wanted to instill in me as well. But he wrenched out of necessity because we were very poor.
Yeah.
Likewise. And so, my dad and I would go to the junkyard together. And I remember we had an S10 Blazer, and we went to the junkyard, and we were buying brake parts, which I don't recommend professionally at all to people at this point, But back at that time, you could turn rotors, and a used caliper was still cheaper than a rebuilt one, and things like that. And we did things out of necessity, and he taught me that valuable lesson about prioritization. Always making sure that my mom had the best vehicle for her commute, and it was the safest and the family vehicle, and he sacrificed while he, in his pursuit of supporting the family. And so, those are really valuable lessons. And then as I came to starting the business, he instilled in me a lot of valuable life lessons of, there will always be another good deal. I think a lot of business owners get very opportunistic, and they're like, well, I have to get this thing. And my dad was always, one to be about patience and like, yes, this sounds like this is a dream vehicle. This is a dream piece of machinery. This is an ideal location, whatever it might be. Yet what's meant to be will be. And so to kind of have faith in God and in the process, and to go, hey, we're going to weather these storms together, and just be a great supporter of mine and encouraging me to excel in that process.
I think between your dad and my dad, the biggest takeaway that I see that was similar between them is the ability to encourage us to do whatever. I mean, the shenanigans they put up with, things like that. But I mean, I was involved in all the different sports growing up. I did many different extracurricular activities for the school, and I was always encouraged to do that.
100%.
It was never, don't do that, that's too much. It was always, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, or too
how
much,
can I support
or,
you?
Yeah, 100%. Or or you have to focus in on this one, exact task or something like that. It was all about, for me being, my parents wanted me to be well-rounded,
Yeah.
and have a diverse amount of experiences. And again, echoing exactly what you said, I want that for my children now, and I want to instill similar concepts, for our kids as a father. So
Absolutely.
he really taught me those lessons.
Yep.
Now, Scott, I know you opted to go last, and I have all the respect in the world for you, and I hope that you will be able to do this,
I'll
to the
do
best
my
of your
best.
ability. For people who are unaware, Scott's father lives on in the business in many capacities, but passed, from us many years ago. So,
I was going to say before I even met you
Yeah.
guys.
yeah.
So my dad was master of many things, but kind of art of none kind of scenario. He could do, growing up, it seemed like he could do anything. It was a vending machine or a garage door or a machinist or work on a car or make a part from scratch, welder, all that kind of stuff. And he was always an innovator trying to do something different. That was honestly one of our best enjoyed things is we'd go to a big car show and we wanted to see what was new, what was different, come up with a unique idea, and can we get it out to the show first? Sadly, we never really would see a project to what most people would say finished. We didn't really paint at home. He used to paint, and I kind of think he was tired of it. He wasn't up for the changes in that market.
I think for him, it was a lot about the journey,
Yeah.
more so than the destination.
It was more of, I remember
Of the
we
build. Journey
we
of
used
the
to-
build.
We used to joke that he had a 48 Pontiac Coupe, and it was gray. At a lot of shows, it was black, but it was actually gray because it was driven in the rain. It was used. It was enjoyed. We used it to. He was a self-employed machinist, so we would take it to his where he's dropping off parts and picking up checks and that kind of stuff. And that was our everyday car in the summertime. So all summer long, me and him were together. My mom was working a full-time job, and he always felt he actually didn't graduate high school. He had an 8th grade education. He used to pound that in my head that he had a lot of shortcomings because of that. And he always told me that I didn't need to get straight A's or I didn't need to be perfect. That I just needed to inert the sense of trying. And if I could honestly tell myself I tried, then that was good enough for him. If I got straight D's and I tried, that is what it is. And I've tried to instill that into my kids.
Of course, you didn't. You were actually a top of your class.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for that story.
Yeah. And I do kind of think it's fun
Because
now.
you tried hard. I think
Yes.
that's because you did try.
Right. And that's why I have the interest in the cars because, most guys, we joke all the time around here that, football season or after the Thanksgiving dinner, you guys are watching football. Me and Dad were out cutting the front of the frame off the 48 and putting a Mustang 2 on it or putting a small block Chevy in it or doing the fuel injection or that kind of stuff. So we never grew up watching any sports. We were always in the garage doing that kind of stuff. And if something didn't fit, we chucked it in the lathe. We made it fit. If we needed to mill something off, we did. And the biggest culture shock I had was getting used to always having Dad there doing the welding, doing the machining. And when I lost Dad, to just trying to figure out how do I continue this lifestyle that I eat, sleep, drink, don't know how to stop. Everything is evolved with vehicles for me. I've had people tell me for years I'm going to get tired of it. And
No, yeah.
Has it happened?
We've been hearing that for years, right?
so building the 36 was kind of proving to myself that I could build a car from scratch pretty much top to bottom by myself.
For yourself.
For
I think
myself.
that's valuable for people listening because you've done amazing restorations here, and I've been along this journey with you. I met Fred. I was there on phone when he passed and all that kind of stuff, and so it was proving to yourself,
Yes.
and for yourself.
Getting it out of my head and onto the reality that I could do it. And so much too. I have to bring up. I have so many surrogate dads, I call them, that have stepped into my life and to be a positive role model, to help me through that journey of not having the dad for some of those questions. And it does definitely have its moments of struggle. But like Jeff said, I have at this point surpassed my dad in skills and stuff. And it's a weird, bittersweet situation when that happens because, if you're doing it right, your dad's your superhero. He's who you look up to. He fixes any problem. And the world could be shutting down and you call dad and he knows what to do. So I hope that I am doing that for my son and my daughter to teach them. I try to bring up stories about my dad so they never got to meet him, so that they feel they have a sense of who he was and the positive role model that he was.
I think that the probably a great closing sentiment is the concept of the surpassing our father's ability in a particular skill or pursuit is in that a testament to their success in fathering,
Yes.
because they have allowed us to kind of achieve in such a way that was actually them creating that propulsion. And so I suppose that is probably all of our hopes for our children. I know I can share that sentiment with you guys because I know we've talked about that, and we do want our children to be wildly more successful than we ever could hope to be in our relative lifetimes. And so with that, if you are a great mentor, if you're a father figure in some capacity, we wish you the best in, kind of this, passing Father's Day experience. But if you just find yourself in the Jeep community, there's actually some really shared concepts in how we unite and how we support each other. So in whatever capacity speaks to you, until next time, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Cheap on.